Alright everyone, now it's time to talk about something that is hysterically funny to me. Mar-a-Lago raid day 2. You have, I think there are a half a dozen different major updates on the FBI raid at the Mar-a-Lago, sort of the January 6th nexus, the hoax committee and things pertinent to these things, the persecution of Donald Trump, the arrival of Bananarepublic Biden. That's a new moniker for him, by the way, because that appears to be what he's reigning over. Biden having an Obama moment. Actually, link in the description. The New York Times are reporting on this. Biden apparently, the claim is, was not even briefed that the FBI was going to raid the private residence of a former president of the United States. Why do I find that difficult to believe? And I'm going to use the same reasoning that I used with Obama in the wake of several of his scandals, most notably Fast and Furious. When he was asked about that, the gun running scandal, the U.S. had run machine guns to cartels, and one of those cartels put out a hit and killed a border agent with a gun that was traced to the United States as part of that arms deal. So the U.S. government supplied weapons for criminals and they killed a U.S. Border Patrol agent. When Obama was confronted about his knowledge of this particular happening, he said he had no clue that it had gone on whatsoever and heard about it first on CNN. And at the time, my logic was this. We either have a president who's incompetent, he's not being briefed and or not asking the right questions, he doesn't care what's going on, that's worrisome. Or he's lying to the American public, knew full well it happened, but it's going to bite him in the ass, so he decided to distance himself and throw other people under the bus. And that's the same logic I use for this. If Joe Biden is not being briefed on a historically unprecedented action like an FBI raid on a president's residency that looks to all reasonable parties like a Bananarepublic move, if he hasn't been briefed, doesn't know what's going on, he's out to lunch, he's incompetent. By the way, with Biden, unlike Obama, I can actually believe that's possibly the case. It seems like the deep state is giving less and less intel to the people that they supposedly serve under. You'll remember that Donald Trump had this issue with troop totals from the envoy in Syria being misled deliberately on this in order to justify having more U.S. troop presence there. The fact that this was never investigated at any significant level in and of itself was worrisome at the time. So either he doesn't know, or he did. And he realizes, well, the reaction to this raid hasn't been as positive as we expected. And I'm hearing from the agents that the safe that we cracked open that we thought all the good stuff was in was actually empty. And we're not sure that there's anything legally actionable here, and we may have just committed another Watergate moment. Whoops, I had no clue that this went on. No, it was... The claim is that no senior White House staff even knew that this went on. Nobody was briefed about it. The FBI effectively just went it alone. The FBI doesn't do this sort of thing alone. Merrick Garland would have at least mentioned it in passing to Biden at some point anyway. I'm certain that Biden was told this. Whether he remembers it or not, of course, it depends on if he's having a lucid day or not. I can accept that. Merrick Garland was involved in the decision-making process. The top rungs of the FBI were aware of the process. They're now trying to cast this off as some local district judge signed off on the warrant. This was like a local deal, basically. Yeah, it just happens to be the judge that temporarily quit his job some time ago to represent Jeffrey Epstein, by the way. I'm just putting that out there. Oh yeah, and he was also a frequent Obama donor. Again, conflict of interest cannot possibly apply if it's against Orange Man. All the liberals that would see this as at least vaguely problematic under any other circumstances all of a sudden suspend disbelief. Can you imagine if Obama had been raided during the Trump days? There'd be 1 million people protesting on the White House lawn saying that it was a form of political retaliation. They'd, by the way, be right at that time. The Mar-a-Lago raid had to have been known of by some White House officials. It's impossible that they kept this under wraps. Hell, everything's so leaky in these agencies, probably some mid-level agent involved with the raid would have just called up the White House and said, look, shit's gonna go down at the Mar-a-Lago, so begin building your narrative about not knowing what the fuck is going on now. I bet that they already had that narrative ready. I don't trust them for a minute when they say that none of these people knew what was going on. I think that in the immediate wake of the raid, they took the pulse very quickly of U.S. public opinion. And they realized it was not largely positive towards raiding a president's home. And that includes, again, virtually all Republicans, a significant majority of independents, and even some liberal individuals. Leftoids think it's funny. Most liberals are lemmings about this. They're putting their head in the sand and pretending that they're licking a boot and the boot will never be on a different foot. Maybe the right foot at some point in the future. We libertarians, by the way, have to warn both parties and all political ideologies about this from time to time. I did it with Republicans, now I have to do it with Democrats. Mostly these people don't fucking listen. Somebody had to know. It's an out-and-out lie. When Biden is claiming that he didn't know anything, okay, he might have just forgotten in a dementia moment. I can't imagine that the Secretary of State, the head of the DOJ, all of these other people had no knowledge, and it was just a local field agent going into the Mar-a-Lago because a district court decided to deliver a sealed warrant pertinent to an investigation that's dovetailed in directly with J6. The J6 people couldn't grab this documentation. They had to get the National Archives to complain. It's beginning to look like basically that's it. The J6 committee, as of roughly July, began to show signs of strain. They weren't getting enough dirt to indict Donald Trump. They didn't have anything legally actionable. They have statements, they have anecdotes, they have semi-anonymous claims, but they don't have any evidence of a crime. They certainly don't have evidence that Donald Trump ordered the troops in to try to commit insurrection. In fact, upon discovering additional material, we know that that's not the case. Fuck, even Miller and Milley would probably have to go to bat for the defense if Donald Trump got indicted at all. It'd be a very, very interesting time seeing people that fucking hate him having no choice but to defend him in a court of law. At that point, J6 falls apart. You've had people on the committee itself acknowledge over the last few months, I don't think that charges are going to be referred because there's nothing to charge. Yeah, we know that Trump is guilty, but it's basically like a Comey 2.0, actually, for political reasons when you really think about it. So in the wake of J6 effectively falling apart, somebody asked the National Archives, hey, some of these documents that may have been declassified by Trump while in office, in which case, again, you can think it's sleazy, but it's not legally actionable. Can you go look into this? Talk to this judge here. He seems like a good dude. He donated to Obama. He's friends with the Epstein group, which means friends of Biden and every other Democrat in the U.S. government, it seems, and most of the neocons, by the way, too. And he'll get a warrant for you. It'll be rubber stamped. Doesn't need to go through the FISA process. I love it when people are like, well, can you imagine how much evidence they must have had on Trump to get this warrant? A politically motivated judge can sign a warrant and face no repercussions whatsoever. Why wouldn't they? I think that there was a backroom deal involved with that too, and if that ever comes to light, it'll be like a goddamn atomic bomb going off in the political world. It'll be bigger than the raid itself. When Bananarepublic Biden assures us that he was not briefed on this at all, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because I think that the deep staters that use him as a fucking puppet don't tell him a lot. He's not going to remember most of it, and you don't want to tell him anything secretive because he might just blurt it out randomly. We know that Biden does these things, but I guarantee Merrick Garland knew. We know that. I have no reason to believe the Secretary of State wouldn't have been appraised of the situation. Hell, the First Lady was probably briefed. Kamala probably knew. But these people don't want to be directly associated with it. Number one, it makes it look political, which it is, but it makes it look even more blatantly a political hit job. That's number one. And number two, I don't think they're confident that they have found anything at the Mar-a-Lago. If they do not find anything, if they're not able to fabricate evidence, find anything, whether it's actionable or not, even if Trump says, well, look, the papers that you took, I declassified them so it doesn't fall under your purview. They'll still be able to at least turn it into a legacy media hit story. Well, Trump improperly stored formerly classified documents. And it'll be Pissgate 2.0 and it won't really work, but they can save face. But what if they don't even get that? What if they've got nothing? Oh, Biden doesn't want... Do you think that everyone else in the Biden admin wants to be tied to that? Buttigieg might run for office. Kamala might run for office. There are people in the administration that want to have a long-term political career. They're not all pushing 80 years old. I think they're actually terrified. I wouldn't be surprised if compartmentalization did deprive Joe Biden of knowledge of this. Now I've got another question. Maybe Peter Doocy can ask Joe Biden this the next time he's caught in between toilet breaks after his bran muffin. If you had known, because you claim not to have been briefed, would you have green-lighted it or would you have stepped in? That's what I would like to know. We'll see if he's willing to answer that question if it ever comes up in conversation with the press. That's about all. Peace out.